Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Hey, how you doing, Rex?
Good, Nestor. It's good to be with you. Long time no see.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for joining, Rex.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
So before we get started, let me quickly talk about the purpose of this channel, the purpose of this podcast. So the Stunning Entrepreneur is all about celebrating the power of entrepreneurship to transform lives and change the world. So today, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to be inspired because we have a true powerhouse join us on the Stunning Entrepreneur. Please put your hands together for the incredible, the unstoppable Rex SCHNELLE. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Rex is an American multi-instrumentalist. He plays the guitar. He's also a singer, songwriter, and record producer. Man, this is a good resume. So,
Thanks.
Rex, welcome.
Thank you. So honored to be here. I hope I can't live up to the hype of how you gave me. I'm just an ordinary guy. So hopefully we can have you know, uh, just a great conversation. So
Thank you, Rex, for taking the time to talk to me and also inspire others with your story.
thank you.
So, Rex, why don't you tell us more about your background? Tell us
Okay.
more a little bit about yourself. So, what do you do? And we can go
Okay.
from there.
So I guess my job is I'm a producer, primarily music, but I also produce other types of media, content producer. I'm a singer songwriter. I'm an artist. Uh, I am a worship leader at a church. I always am bivocational or trivocational because the reality is we have to wear a lot of hats to survive in our economy, and so just kind of that's what I do presently. I've been doing this for a long time, since I've been about 22 years old professionally. That's what I've been doing. So I feel real fortunate to be able to have been done that. I've been married. It's gonna be 34 years. Deborah is my wife, from Texas, migrated to Tennessee in 1990, and have been, the Nashville area ever since. We live in Franklin, Tennessee right now, and so we're just. I've enjoyed the ride. I've been very, very blessed. So it's been a great journey.
Thank you for sharing that. So, you are from Texas. So,
Yes.
which town are you specifically in Texas?
There's a small town called Marble Falls right outside of Austin that is where I was born,
Mhm.
and was raised there. Started my first rock and roll band with guys in high school, and then moved to Austin to go to college, University of
Mhm.
Texas, which Austin is about 50 miles from my hometown. It's all in the Texas Hill Country, which is beautiful. Resonates with me as being home, and and then was in Austin until we moved to Nashville in 1990.
That's awesome, man. So you mentioned about your first band. So
Yeah.
was it back in Texas still? I believe it was in
Uh-huh.
Texas.
Yeah, it was
So, go
fresh
ahead.
freshman in high school. Uh, Friends of mine. I'd been playing guitar for a while. The other guys kind of had first started playing their instruments, but we kind of got together, and right away we had a pretty nice growth as musicians. We started writing songs right away. So, and then we started playing, and we started making a little money right away. So it was an introduction to the thought that perhaps this music hobby could be a vocation, and just fell in love with guitar. And that was about the time that Eddie Van Halen and growing up in Texas, all the rich musical history and heritage inspired all of us. And there was four of us in the rock and roll band, and we still play to this day. Every once in a while we get together and have reunion concerts, but it kind of ended when I went to college. But so that was a great first experience.
Right. So the band was called Next Exit. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Next Exit. Yeah.
Next Exit. there was a meaning about that name, or what was the meaning for that name?
Yeah, our drummer had gone on a choir trip, and I think he saw a sign on the road that said "next exit," and he thought, "Well, that's a good name for a band." So he introduced it, and we just kept it. You know, it was a
No, that's
kind of a cool name. I think there's several of those band names out there. You know, we just happen to be one of them. So
that's cool. So that's definitely a good story there. So do you have relatives in the music industry as well, or how did you learn about the music industry?
no, I grew up with an aptitude for guitar. My mom, grandparent, my dad bought me a little plastic guitar when I was about 7 years old, maybe 6 years
Mhm.
old, and my mom was a musician. She played contrabass in a local orchestra. She sang in the choir. She took me to guitar lessons. I really have to, tribute her to introducing me kind of to the music process. And then I sang in church and choir, and always had a love for music, and very quickly learned how to play by ear, which I wish I would have been more formally trained, but that also was just a fast track to become a musician, is to find that. So
Yeah. So you were basically learning by doing.
yep, yes,
That's
learning by doing. That's correct. Yes,
that's good.
yeah,
So that's good.
yeah.
So I read your bio, like I mentioned before. So your first extended play was back in 1984. So tell us
Y-
more about that.
yeah, that was I had been in the band, went to University of Texas at Austin, started writing my own songs, and then found another friend of mine that played drums. And so it just so happened that there was a house that I'd lived in Austin. A good friend named Gordon Garrison had a studio in his house,
Hmm.
and ended up living there. And but before that, booked uh, 2 days or so to go in and track 4 songs, like a 4-song EP.
Mhm.
And it was a taste to hear uh, creatively what I heard in my mind, and kind of had learned to do. Never really spent much time in a studio, but once I heard and recorded and found out that I had a skill that could do this, it lit the fire to want to be able to do that, studio work, recording, the music industry. And so that first EP, we had put a band together and played around Austin, and then actually that turned into a couple of other band versions of that. And then soon after that, I played with an artist named Philip Sandifer in Austin, who was professional, had a record out. He was a contemporary Christian artist, and so we toured. And a friend of mine named Brian Wooten, who was a guitar player in Austin at the time, well known, was Philip Sandifer's guitar player, and he had got an offer to play with the Imperials.
Huh.
And so he recommended me to Philip Sandifer to play in the band. So I have to really attribute Brian Wooten, incredible guitar player. He's actually Trace Atkins' guitar player right now. Brian was in Whiteheart, the band, for several years, and recorded with them and wrote with them. And he's just an amazing guy, good-hearted guy. And so he opened that door for that first, kind of real professional experience with that. And it took off from there too. So
Connections, right? It's
yeah,
all
yeah,
about connections.
it is. Yeah.
It's a good story there. So you moved to Nashville in 1990. So
Yeah.
what was the reason for this
Um,
trip to Nashville?
we I got married in 1989 too, so a lot of things happened at the same time. But there was a friend of mine. There was a band called Russia. A couple of guys that had migrated from the Soviet Union and had a
Mm.
very amazing guys. Put a band together, had a hit record that they did themselves independently. And a friend of mine said they're looking for a guitar player, songwriter guy. So I tried, went on the road with them a couple of weeks in the end of 1989, passed the audition. So joined the band, and we moved. Deb and I just got married. We moved to Nashville and joined the band. And it was a great experience. I did it for about a year, and soon kind of realized that I'm not sure this is what I really want to do, is to do the touring and thing. Deb, my wife, and I had an opportunity to do a music ministry in Austin at a church.
Uh-huh.
And so right before we did that, this opportunity came up. So we were going to move back to Texas after about a year and just go back to that place that we were going to work or whatever. And so what I didn't know, the band that I was with Russia, they had a relationship with Sony, and which we knew about, you know, and everything. But I never you know, signed a contract or anything. So when we were about to leave and move back to Texas, the head of Sony called me up and said, "Where are you going? You can't leave. You know, you've got a contract." And I said, "I didn't
know
sign a
that.
contract, you know." And so he just said, "Don't leave." You know, he said, you know, don't quit, don't leave. You don't go back to Texas. And so I did. And then somehow me and the singer developed into a songwriter deal with Sony in 1990. And that's how all of the connections to the Nashville music industry kind of grew and exploded from there. And then soon after that, I started playing with other people as well. I played live with Kenny Marks was an artist there. Stephen Curtis Chapman played a show with him in Holland. Then played with Allison Taylor, an amazing artist there, just as a hired guitar player. Jamie Kyle, incredible singer-songwriter artist that had success writing for songs for Hart and some other people, and then started doing sessions there in Nashville, and all connected with Sony as well. 2 years later, Paul Worley, who was the head of Sony Publishing at the time, signed me and the singer Danny Moore to a publishing deal, and just after a couple of years, they dropped us. There a lot of bands get signed and try to create something, and there was some success from our class of people that got signed. Ben Folds, there was Human Radio was another band that got signed about that time. So they connected. Then 3 or 4 of us didn't, so we got dropped from the publishing deal. However, I had become and garnered skills and could basically do a one-man band in the studio where I played all the instruments. I recorded myself. I could write the song, I could sing the song, but I would be hired to do that for other people. And that's how I worked for Sony for about 25 years in the studio. There was a friend of mine at Sony that did that before I did, the guy named Jeff Borders. And he was wanting to move on to be a singer-songwriter or to be a songwriter. And so he said, "Hey, do you want to start doing demos for Sony?" And Sony had bought the equipment and kind of created the studio. And I stepped into that role. And then that was about the time Pro Tools started to really come into prominence, digital analog workstations. And so about 1993, 1994, very grateful. Pat McMakin was at Sony. He was the studio manager, and also he was an executive in the company too, and just really embraced me and gave me an opportunity, including Paul Worley and then other heads of Sony through the years. I got a chance to do demos, which were, songwriters would write a song and they'd bring it in the studio and say, "I just need to record this." And many times I would create the bed of all the music, I would on the spot, overdub guitar, bass, drums, and program, and then we would do a demo. And through that, I got a chance to work with an amazing assortment of people. The first people that I started doing demos for were people like Terry Clark, Blake Shelton, Dierks Bentley, a bunch of newer and a whole class of those. And Sony, their writer roster at the time was Brooks and Dunn, Merle Haggard, and even across the board, I got a chance to work with other rock and pop artists too, which I still, like I said, it was demos, but I got a chance to work with the Everly Brothers, Merle Haggard, Brooks and Dunn, a lot of these artists, Olivia Newton-John, John Bon Jovi came to town one time, and we went in the studio. Or actually, that was another studio that I was in a band with Allison Taylor, and she wrote with him. And she called me up and said, "Rex, we're in the studio tomorrow with John," And so that was a great experience. I'm so blessed to be there, and started working with a lot of my heroes. Randy Bachman came into the studio one time. He was in Nashville writing, wanting to, maybe write country or whatever, write songs. So I got a chance to demo and work with him. Kind of the same thing happened. I remember Night Ranger, I don't know if you've heard of them. They came to town, and Don Cook was the new president of Sony at the time. And so I was able to work in the studio with Don and Jack Blades from Night Ranger, and got a chance. We went and saw their show and at their Starwood amphitheater. And then just through the experience with Sony, so many projects, so many demos, so many hours, the 10,000 hours. We I put in the 10,000 hours, which for those who are wanting to do this, the word show business, you've got show and you've got business, and you've got to have both. But you can't do the business unless there's a show. You have to have the 10,000 hours. So, be prepared to put in the time to do that. So anyway, it grew from there. And so, my career expanded from then on out to doing, recording projects. And then I started to kind of step into my artistry as well. And that developed into me as an artist. And the opportunities that came my way, I think I got a chance to do a record where I recorded with my guitar heroes, Eric Johnson and Dan Huff, who was a major producer and, ACM's producer of the year for 4 years, I think, and Billboard's producer of the year. Got a chance he's a guitar player as well, amazing studio session guy, and a writer and a performer, just kind of a renaissance, musician. And then Phil Kagi, who was, I was a hero. He was my hero, and all these guys were. And I did a record, and it just somehow within 2 days, all of them agreed to play on my record. That's awesome. So I'm really proud of that. And worked with singer-songwriter Bill Anderson, who's, Grand Ole Opry, famous, huge, songwriter, Hall of Fame songwriter. I produced 4 of his records, co-produced with him 4 of his records, and wrote with him as well a little bit. And so that was I really count that as an experience that I'm just so blessed, because he's such an icon, in the industry. And great artist and sweet individual, and hired me to play on the road with him for a couple of years. So you take jobs and wear a lot of hats, when you do
exactly.
this.
Yeah. So, but at that time you were already working independently, or you were still working for Sony?
Yeah, I was not employed by Sony. I was an independent contractor.
Oh, okay, I see.
But they were my clientele. They were 99% of my clientele for 25 years. In fact, they even bought equipment and designed a studio around kind of my one-man band thing for a while. And so it was very productive, and it provided opportunities to do these demos. And some of the demos I did ended up on the record, kind of the way they were, which was a great experience as well. And I started doing record sessions as a guitar player, started being a session leader, doing sessions with amazing Nashville musicians that have gone on to, to play with that too. I just feel very fortunate to be in that fraternity and sorority of musicians that are just the upper echelon. I sneak in. I'm the blind date. I'm the guy that I'm so glad to be with you guys today. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So could you say that if someone wants to be involved into the music industry, so Nashville is a good place to start?
It is. The music culture has changed so much. The economy of the music industry has changed so much, and it has historically throughout time. The latest change has really been hard and detrimental to find a way to support, income way. It's the streaming model that has taken off and has kind of just reformulated how we do what we do. So the traditional ways of large budgets, of studio time, of marketing, charging $18 for a CD that cost you $1.20 to make, labels would do that. That was the old model where there was plenty of revenue flowing. But once streaming took off and physical products were no longer a part of, or a large part of the sales, the world changed. The money went out the window. The decimal place moved 3 or 4 or 5 spaces to the right. I'm sorry, to the left.
The left.
And so the incoming streams to supply the money to do that type of corporate, funded music went away. And then the new economy of social media, of influence, of, and then the live performance model, you could see the industry changing as this went across, to where record contracts started to include part of your live performance money, part of your product sales. It was called a 360 deal. The labels would want that because they couldn't make the money they could before. And now that streaming is the main thing and virtual music is the main thing, it is the wild, wild west, as far as trying to find a way to do that. So I've always been a producer, and my client list has always just been mostly independent people. So you have to be flexible. And the other thing is you have to be humble and be willing to be bivocational or trivocational and do what it takes to, to supplement your income. And that's when I got into producing and doing, engineering as well, and doing video production and doing podcast, and then learning to be a producer of music to actually take artists and grow their career, and help hopefully open that door as well. So, and then work, paint walls if I have to make money,
Exactly.
But fortunately I've been really blessed to not do much of that. So
yeah, I see that. Thank you for sharing. So let's talk about your albums. So back in 2008, you started with Guitar Country, right?
Okay, so there's a part of my career here that's separate. I have my artistry, but then I also have production music, which is what they call synchronization, where they take music and synchronize it to video and put it in commercials and movie and cable television and video games. And as I was working for Sony, these opportunities came up to make this production music. So you basically do write a song, and this record I did was all country guitar, but I played all the instruments, and it was specifically to have this library of music to place on TV. So a lot of my placements have been on ABC Sports, Duck Commander, the cable television shows where they need little transitions. So they chop up the music to do transitions. And I was fortunate enough to be connected to Sony, to where I got a couple of 3 or 4 records placed in the catalogs of some of these production, and those are the ones that actually are my royalty income. The other things I've done that have been personal have been smaller amounts as compared to the production music that I've done. And so I've done three or 4 records with Sony, with EMI, which is a Sony company. They merged. And so that is all of that family too. But you can go buy singles like you can, on Spotify and iTunes. You can go buy those songs as well. So that's one area that you were talking about, that title, Guitar Country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then there is another one called Ballad Country.
Yeah. So at the same time I did that record, I did Guitar Country. The company, which was extrememusic.com, a Sony company, said, hey, let's do another one and do ballads. So I did a full record of Guitar Country, mostly instrumental, but then we did a ballad country, and I did 2 vocal songs on it. And so those 2 records were part of that extrememusic.com catalog that ended up on a lot of TV shows and movies and commercial stuff like that. So
that's awesome. And then the next one that I have here is Pop Country.
Right. So another opportunity came along a few years later, where the head of Sony at the time, Troy Tomlinson, said, hey, Rex, got a company that wants to do another production thing, except this time they want 20 songs that I wrote and composed, and it was all vocal. So basically 20 songs that sound like all the hit music that's out there, from Americana to country to pop. And it was EMI in Great Britain that were requiring this, and there's an assignment to write this record. So I wrote this record and recorded it, and had a bunch of my artist friends sing on it that needed like a female vocal, a male vocal. I did all the instrumentation, most of the instrumentation. Some of my friends contributed. Dan Dugmore on steel, Glenn Duncan on violin, and gosh, if I can't remember other people. But so that record was 20 songs, and it was primarily in the UK, but it's done well too. So between those two records, between those 4 records, that's been I've been real fortunate to have that.
Did you sing with a British accent?
No, they actually just they would say, write a song like Adele, write a song like Blake Shelton, write a song like whoever it may be, Brandy Carlisle or whatever, write a song like that. And so I would write a song and find the female singer or the male singer, or I would sing. I can't really do country, so I didn't do those. But so, yeah, it was, and that's where my chops as a producer, really expanded as well. So
that's good. So let's talk about your collaborations. You mentioned before Phil
Keaggy.
Yeah, Phil Keaggy.
Yeah.
So how influential he was in your career?
Yeah, as a young man, about 11 years old, I saw him play, and he was in a band called Glass Harp in the late 60s. That he was known as a pretty incredible virtuoso guitar player. And then he was part of the early Jesus movement in the early 70s. If you've seen the movie, the Red Jesus Revolution, he was a big part. In fact, he was a part of the band Love Song when they started and kicked off that whole West Coast gospel Jesus movement thing. And that's where his career really exploded. And then he was world renowned amongst guitar players as being just one of the best. He truly is one of the best too. So at a young age, I met him. And then as a turn of fate in 2005, I'd been working here in the Christian music industry. My wife actually got a record deal in 1994 in a Christian trio. So she was also a singer. And I had met Phil Keaggy, and we met at a birthday party and just said, hey, let's work together. Let's hang out. Let's write. So from 2005 till now, we've been working together and become very, very good friends. And he's been a mentor of mine. So that's awesome. He was real instrumental too.
That's awesome. We definitely need mentors, right? In our lives.
Yeah. And also at the same time, Dan Huff entered that same experience. He was a producer, guitar player, like I said, producer of the year, Billboard. And then another guitar player, Eric Johnson, who'd won a Grammy for his record too. They all contributed to my first really big artist record that I did myself. Well, big in the sense that it was an experience, not that it sold. I think it sold plywood, as we would joke, instead of going gold or platinum, it went plywood. But it was, I count that as, the greatest experience. And then continued to contribute to other records later on. They contributed to be a part of it, and just so grateful for them, mentors, Dan Huff, Eric Johnson, Phil Keaggy, just amazing people.
Thank you for sharing that. So tell us more about your latest album. It's called All I Want Is You.
All I Want.
Yeah. Yep. Released in 2022.
Yeah, it was the latest one. So my influences from Sting to Mr. to Steely Dan to Eric Johnson to Yes to Van Halen to I could go on and on with a lot of the influences that I love. Alan Parsons Project, all of the really well crafted musician heavy Toto groups that inspire me. That's what my records sound like. And so the latest one that I wrote, I'm very proud of it. I feel like my songwriting is maturing. I have on this record, I've written with Hall of Fame songwriters too: Tom Douglas, Chapin Hartford, Michael Koster. There's people that I've written with that I'm very proud of. Some of these songs, Bill Anderson, Rivers Rutherford, James House. I feel like I've been blessed to be able to collaborate with the best songwriters and learn from the best songwriters. And so this latest record is a lot like that. It's very pop, very progressive rock, and high production value. So I'm real pleased with it.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned about your faith,
yeah,
and your influencers to become a Christian.
Yes.
Could you please share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think in my journey, my story, when you work as much as I did, I was discovering that I didn't have fulfillment unless there was a purpose, unless there was and the purpose is, for the thriving of man, for the good of man, and moving away from belligerence and hatred more toward love and reformation and virtuous life, and helping loving people and finding healthy ways to express what we were created to express. And so what I discovered is that faith was the door to finding that relationship with God. And again, I know there's some people that may or may not subscribe to that, and we have a free country. My expression is, I would invite you to taste it and see how it will change your world. It changed my life and brought me health and life and struggle, and but has been the biggest factor in finding purpose and meaning. And I'm that I was pursued by God and saved by Him from my own devices is why I do that. So that's what and it started from a young age. I grew up in a believing, what I would call evangelical situation, Orthodox Christianity, very, very gospel centered, but very very love and grace oriented to hopefully present who God really is, which is the lover of man and redeemer of the world. So
yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. And then I believe you also have songs related to Jesus, correct?
That's correct. And even just Christian worldview struggles of finding paths of self-care and care for others that make us thrive and create redemption. And especially when we try to find any other, for me, fulfillment in any other place, it will go empty very quickly unless it's connected to who God is. And then He came and lived as one of us, Jesus.
Exactly.
And He's God and He's man, and it's a mystery, but He actually can be with us, and that's the key. He can be with us. So it influences everything: music, creativity, and a way to communicate the love of God, which doesn't make you check your brain at the door, which doesn't it doesn't make you anything other than desire that love. So
yeah, thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about hobbies. Do you have any particular hobby that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, it's interesting, Nestor. I mean, music being my income, it's also my, I love music as a hobby. So it is a big part of it. But I also love art. I love reading and theology, and I love friendship and community, and especially multi-ethnic community, to where I'm the minority and I get to be. I mean, meeting you, one thing I want to commend you for is, as a man who's bilingual, and in becoming an entrepreneur yourself, and actually finding this medium of connecting and inspiring you're an example as well. So I love meeting people like you. And then I have podcasts and I do other things too. That's a big part of what drives me, as a person and as a connector and in community too. So I love that. I like exercise. I used to love to run, but because I'm getting old, 58, my knees and my ankles and my hips now, oh goodness, won't let me run. So now I walk, a lot too, but I love to exercise. So those things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Music is your hobby, your main hobby.
It is.
Awesome. So let's talk about your business itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you write songs.
Yeah.
You're a singer. You're also partnered with other musicians.
Mm-hmm.
So which products are your top 3 products that you provide?
Okay. So I'm a producer.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, a producer is someone who has to have the skill to write, record, play, collaborate, market, social media. You kind of have to have all those skills, and I bring to the table all of those skills to help other people. And so I'm a big, part of that. I think one of the best projects I've done is me and Phil Kagi did a record together called Illumination. And it's a progressive rock record, and it really is. I'm very, very proud of it. We get nothing but great reviews, and it shows. I play all the instruments on it except for Phil Kagi's guitar and his vocal, and it was a way for us to do that. So that's one project that I do, which I also include as a part of my products. I'm a guitar player, bass player, drummer, keyboard player, singer. So I can actually do that for other people, be hired as a guitar player, be hired as a singer on other people's that are projects as well. So that's my main product. I also am an engineer and video producer and audio producer. So at present, I'm a technical producer of Positive Sobriety Podcast, which we've done 150 podcasts of a good friend of mine, Nate Larkin. Well, David Hampton is the main guy on the podcast, and they interview recovery people that are in substance abuse recovery. That's why they call it Positive Sobriety. So I do, the production of that particular, the technical production of that particular, put together the segments and that kind of thing, and have been doing that for a while. I also do videos, produce some of my own videos and some videos for other people. When I produce records, sometimes I'll do the graphics and I'll do the design of the CD and the photography and the artwork and all that kind of stuff too. I did that for Illumination, which is Phil Kagi and I record too. And I'm pretty proud of that package. It turned out really sharp looking. So that's a big part. And then live music, I'm also as known as I could hire me to play in your band. Although I'm busy enough with my own stuff that it's hard to carve out time there. And so that's one product. I'm a worship leader at a church, so I also basically write the liturgy for the worship service, all the prayers, all of the the confessions, and then the music, and kind of trend the whole outline of that. So hopefully, I'm going to be an author probably pretty quickly. I've had a couple of people approach me and say, "Would you write about some Christian worldview, but in a way that would, like Tim Keller, who's just passed away, big hero of mine, and by watching his life, it makes me want to embrace some of the mantle of what he did, how he communicated the gospel, how he communicated the love of God into real life, and just helped people find that." And I want to do that as well. So
through books, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Definitely a good idea there. You want to pursue.
Yeah.
So how do you differentiate your business from competitors?
So it really, in creativity, it really is you have to find where you can thrive, and so your skill set will kind of help you find out what you do. Because I'm technical as well as creative, I can offer a lot more what I would call turnkey, everything. I can do everything for you if you would desire me to do that. But I can also work and plan and coordinate a whole production with those people if you want me to do that too. One thing that I've kind of started moving toward is learning who to say no to and who to say yes to, and being honest and humble enough to say, I know what you're trying to do. I have a friend that can do it better than me. Let me refer you to this friend. Or say, if you would like me to, I can help you grow. You're not quite ready to record, but you can grow to that. Let me help you in your career, and let me help you do that as well. So I think I try to position myself as someone who, I've told, the person told me this one time. He said, Rex, it's just, you're so good at making other people successful. And so part of maybe what I'm supposed to do is make other people successful. And in turn, that helps, that pays my bills. So,
exactly. Win-win relationship.
Yeah.
So that's good. Thank you for saying yes to this podcast.
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm glad. I'm excited what you're gonna, the coverage you're gonna get, and what people are gonna start seeing this as an opportunity too. So I think you're gonna get some good guests as well. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So in terms of your sales channels, how do you get your customers? Is it word of mouth? How does it work?
Yes, it is word of mouth. It's relationships, really, for me. Just recently, I'm really excited. Through Phil Kagi, I had heard a project that Phil Kagi and Robin Crow, who owns Dark Horse Institute. It's a school for recording and songwriting. He's also a New York Times bestselling author. They did a project with John Anderson from Yes, and it was a really well produced. Robin produced and Phil played on it, and it was incredible. But I heard one of those songs, and when I listened to the songs, I go, man, I'd love to turn that into more of a rock, like add to it, turn it into a Yes sounding song. And so I did that, and John Anderson loved it. And I reached out to him, and I did a video and the production. And so I'm being able to work with my heroes like John Anderson, the singer for Yes, and praying about a sales channel for that particular project. But I have a lot of these little one-off, but really nicely connected and intriguing, beautiful productions. And so it's more word of mouth and relationship. I don't have advertising. I'm not good at that. So that's what the weakest thing that I do is marketing and social media and that kind of thing too. So I'm trying to figure out a better way to do that.
Yeah, but it seems like relationships is really, really key for your business.
Very key.
Awesome. Something to take in consideration for those who want to pursue this career.
That's correct.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So let's go over the challenges. So what are some of the biggest challenges you have faced as an entrepreneur?
Yes. In my world of music and production, the economic model, like I've talked about, changed so drastically that the money went away. And so finding revenue streams that are new and that are, untried, for instance, the internet, records, having your own website, selling your own downloads as opposed to streaming, to have people value an artifact of your creativity and be willing to pay for it, as opposed to just stream it and give you 0.0003 cents. Maybe spend $10 and buy your record, download a digital copy of it, or even spend maybe $20 and get a CD as an artifact, which is the best way to support an artist. Just like a painter can make a painting, but he can't sell it as a digital copy online. You know what I mean? That's a hard thing to do, even though there's a creative way to do that. That's been the biggest challenge, is finding a way to create a revenue stream to support my skill, which used to be paid for by physical artifacts, sales of physical artifacts. That's gone away. That's
It
gone
has
away.
changed a lot
It has gone away.
in the
Yeah.
last few years. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
I see that it's changing a lot.
Yeah.
And how did you stay motivated during these tough times?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I guess there's two things. The first thing is um, you have to love what you do, whether you're paid for it or not. You
Mm-hmm.
have to create beauty, you have to, and quality, and you really have to pour all of those energies into that. But then the second thing that I've found is purpose. I can't spend my passion on things that I don't feel have a purpose. And so right away, what I call people, if it doesn't light your jets, if it doesn't really give you, the monkey, what my friend uh, Don Cook, who was the head of Sony for some hit songwriter, he called it the monkey nerve. You've got to push the monkey nerve that makes the monkey, play the cymbals, and you'll know, and to let yourself be, let that be kind of a catalyst for what you pursue. Sometimes we've got to do jobs that we don't like. Sometimes we've got to dig a ditch. Sometimes we've got to, whatever we may do, shingle a house. And there's people that get really good at that and love that. And
Mm-hmm.
so just count your blessings, and appreciate the fact that find something that drives your passion, but also be humble. Know that you've got to pay your bills, and don't be scared of really hard work. And then the very last thing I would say is 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours.
You have to develop your skill. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just expect it to come,
Mm-hmm.
and so be patient with yourself, pursue that. You do the best that you can, create art, create circumstances with the best of what you bring to the table, but let yourself grow, go to the next level, and be relentless, be prodigious. Just produce, because there'll be a day when you can't produce anymore. So take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of the moment, seize the day.
Yeah, definitely. Have you read the book called Outliers from Malcolm Gladwell?
I have not.
He
I haven't.
he talks about the 10,000 hours.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's the
Yeah.
original source. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only read quotes from that. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I was a better student of reading more of that.
Yeah.
I tend to focus yeah.
Yeah, it's quite popular. His book is
Yeah.
called Outliers.
Yeah. He
For
was
those
the
who want to
original.
explore that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I learned that in school.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you. All right, so let's talk about accomplishments.
Yeah.
So you have mentioned a lot about your projects. So can you describe a successful project or accomplishment that you have, or you're particularly proud of?
Yeah. I had mentioned before, there was a record I did called Hero Shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And on that record, there is me and Phil Kagi and Eric Johnson, Grammy-winning guitar player, singer, songwriter, artist. Dan Huff, Grammy-winning producer, of the year, and they're all on that record. There's one song that me and Phil Kagi and Eric Johnson trade solos. We trade solos on an instrumental together. And that was a huge accomplishment for me, because I have friends in the industry that have been trying to get Phil Kagi and Eric Johnson together to play together, because they're such world-renowned musicians. And then here I come along on my record, and I'm nobody, and then I'm part of that little triad of getting them to play on the same record. So that was, to me, just divine appointment for that. So I'm really pleased with that record, and really all the 4 records that I have on my website. I really am pleased, and there's nothing on those records there's everything about those records that I'm really pleased with. So those accomplishments good. The 4 records I produced for Bill Anderson are, they stand really well, especially the last 2 that I did with him, Songwriters and Life. I got a chance to work on that last record with some of Bill's friends, Willie Nelson, Brad Paisley, Vince Gill, John Anderson, the country singer, swinging, and then great musicians, Eddie Bears, David Hungate. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of some Dan Dugmore, Glenn Duncan. And then through my career, just working through with those types of level of musicians that I can honestly say are all humble, are all supportive, and so that those records with Bill Anderson, and then I got to say, it's things that are coming up that I'm excited about to release. The John Anderson thing, I'm hoping we can release that as well, and then new projects that will include Phil Kagi. Phil Kagi and I are working a lot together too. Elimination is one of those moments that I'm very proud of as well, and so. You know, I didn't make a lot of money, so I wasn't commercially hugely successful. I made a living. I paid for my house. You know, those things that I'm very grateful for. That is, you know, that is a true blessing. So there wasn't any ship that came in that I made $1 million. But in the meantime, I've gotten to work with my heroes, and it's been amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So what have you learned about leadership and management while running your business?
Right. I think one of the things that I can offer in my product set is I feel like I've learned to coach people well, to get their best performance that they can bring, at the same time of helping them enjoy that process, enjoy the moment, finding the joy in the process, and as a good coach will help you not waste energy on things that you shouldn't be wasting your energy on, but spend energy on the things you should be. Find your strengths and play toward those. I feel like I've become that not only in music but also in relationships, and then in organizations, in running, you know, relationships and organizations and leadership. For instance, in a session or a elder board of a church, executive boards of companies, you know, casting vision of emphasizing strengths and mitigating weaknesses, but then improving the weakness to become a strength too. I feel like through this process of being a producer and working with people, and then trying to get it myself, you know, trying to produce myself, to coach myself, I feel like I've come to a place where I can offer a lot to coaching and teaching and bringing the best performance and enjoyment in people and their process.
Yeah, and also you have a lot of experience, so that's definitely beneficial for those who want to learn from you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's go over the pieces of advice that you might have for entrepreneurs. So what advice could you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who have just started in this industry, music industry?
In the music industry, I think one of the things that you need to grab a hold of is your work ethic. You'll need to understand that it's, you know, to set a good schedule, to be disciplined, to you know, work on your craft, but work on all the other things that support that. If you're, you know, really learn a musical instrument, really learn how to craft, you know, educate yourself, intelligence, but also be humble. Never be afraid to, you know, and musicians obviously step into this category of being bivocational, you know, being a barista at Starbucks, or being or even having a true bivocation of a career where they're like a medical professional or they're a business professional, and to understand that to step in and just do what it takes to support yourself will always open doors of opportunity for your true passion. So don't be afraid to maybe spend time that you'd like to spend in creativity. You know, working a job doesn't take away your ability to play guitar. You can come home, be more focused with your guitar playing if you have a regular job, and it will help you become better faster because you have to manage your time.
Exactly.
As opposed to having too much time and then being scattered and not know how to manage your time. So be disciplined and be intelligent about and humble, you know, to enter into that as well.
discipline is tough sometimes.
It is.
Yeah.
And don't become obsessed.
Mhm.
Don't, one of the things in a faith practice is a thing that can become quote unquote an idol or a compulsive nature is, if I don't have that thing that I'm after, life is not worth living.
Mhm.
Or if I could just get rid of this, life would be worth living. Or if I could just do this, life would be worth living. You have to find the enjoyment of life and not let that thing be an obsessive thing. In other words, it's do or die for that. You have to find your health and joy in relationships, and then you can appreciate those things for their own merit.
Mhm.
Then you can become good, and your personality, your testimony as a person will flow in a more healthy way if you can actually approach what you're after to do that, and not let it be the end all do all of who you are.
Mhm.
Be a balanced person. So
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. And then I know you have been dealing with multiple projects. So how
mhm.
do you prioritize your goals and make decisions for your business?
Yeah. Very basically, two things. First thing is, financially, you just have to make it work. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you're working on something and it's not making you money, and you have the opportunity to work on something that makes you money that will pay your bills, of course
Mm-hmm.
you've got to choose the thing that your responsibility to meet the demands of life. Along with that, um, you have to balance uh, purpose. And so sometimes you may sacrifice a little of money to be in a process that is purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
So, it may not pay as much, or it may not pay anything at all, but to be able to engage in that causes you to be engaged for a purpose. And so balancing that is the key. But, at the end of the day, we got to work, you know,
Exactly.
and
You have
so
to pay
that
the bills.
have to pay the bills. Now, again, don't let that be a compulsive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to live frugally. Learn what really matters. You don't have to have luxury, and that's
Mm-hmm.
our culture of convenience has basically lied to us to say, well, why would I work hard? When things are, well, you'll find out. But what you'll find out is, the energy and the passion you spend toward a goal that begins to reward you back will
Mm-hmm.
give you wisdom of how to proceed from that point. So
Yeah. Thank you. So to wrap this up, anything that you would like to add? Any projects? You talk about a couple of projects that you're working on,
mhm,
so the people or the audience is aware of your work.
yeah. This is an interesting process in the new music economy. Um, Various production values are presenting themselves that change over time. So
Mm-hmm.
in our market right now, when making that hyper technical perfected record with all of the moving parts and the lights and bells and whistles, that used to be what you would sell. But what's becoming more and more part of what the new market is basically being good enough to get on your iPhone, pull up your guitar, and sing your song with that low quality phone microphone and the whole thing, and make that sound really good,
Mm-hmm.
and do that a lot. So you have to be secure in your skill, bold in your effort, but also at the same time, don't take yourself too seriously. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, be yourself, perform, do what you do, and that's the thing I'm not comfortable with is social media. I'm just not that person that, like a lot of the what I call the kids, the youngins that have grown up with social media. They're so
Mm-hmm.
good at it because they interact. To me, it's just I'm so self-conscious, and I've got this 58-year-old man inside of this 14-year-old kid, and he doesn't know what to do. But my new projects are going to be that I'm going to just be free. And I've done a couple of live performances where I've analyzed what I've done and go, I can do this. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not Sting. I'm not these people that are just really, really good at what they do. but what I have to offer is me, and I've found that me, that unique me, and what I can bring to the table. And you may not like me, and that's fine, but there are those people who do like me as far as what I can express. And I'm not trying to sell me, I'm trying to sell the story.
Exactly.
You know, I'm trying to sell the experience. And so I'm excited about the future because I'm finally at peace with that. I'm finally, you know, it's taken me all this time to finally sit in a place to where let me play you a song, you know.
Exactly.
So, you know.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then where can people find your products, your services?
My website obviously is the best place. And all the marketing people will tell you that's primary. rexmusic.us, rexmusic.us. And I'm going to revamp that. I'm constantly revamping. You can find out all of my products on that, except for my Phil Keaggy record, which is, you can go to Phil Keaggy, the Illumination record that we've done together. And then many other things that we've done together is on his website as well. I'm going to try to incorporate that into my website. So my website, rexmusic.us. I have a YouTube channel that I have a bunch of videos and live performances that you can check out what I do. I would really, if you would, look at my live performance stuff. I'm really pleased with, you know, how that came out, and my musicians are so good, and I want them to be rewarded and known and you know, kind of lauded for their capability too. And they're such great people. So I want you to see them, what they contribute when we get together, what they contribute to the sound. So that, and then I'm on Facebook. You know, you can find me on Facebook as well if you want to chat or connect that way.
Awesome. This is very, very helpful and very, very educational for those who are definitely trying to get into the music industry. Thank you.
So.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Very, very inspiring. And people will definitely take full advantage of your pieces of advice. Thank you again for the opportunity. So anything else that you would like to add before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I just want to commend you, Nestor, for this is really well done. And thank you for giving it such a great, I mean, everything about it is just, I love the format. I love the framing. I love your good work of focusing and being a coach of know what to ask and that kind of thing too. So I want to commend you for this.
Thank you, Rex, for your words and for the opportunity again. And for those who are watching us, thank you guys for stopping by. We really appreciate your time and your efforts. Thank you again. See you next time.
Thanks, Nestor. Blessings.
Bye.